What's up, everybody? It's Scotty here with Flat Track Flashback. And before we get into today's videos, just a few housekeeping things to take care of. And this is probably going to be the clip that you're going to see before we start every video. So just the usual stuff. If you like what we're doing here on this channel, we ask that you please hit that subscribe button, like, share, comment, dislike. But most importantly, we just appreciate you guys checking us out and taking time to listen to what we got to say about flat track racing. We thank you for your support of this channel and for the sport that we all so very much love. If you want to engage with us off of the YouTube platform, you can also follow us on Instagram. That is at Flat Track Flashback on Instagram. And you can shoot us an email. That's the email address for us is flattrackflashback@gmail.com. So we've got those little slide outs up there for you guys to look at. And again, if you want to engage with us off this platform, feel free to do so. But hey, we're happy to see what you guys have to say here on YouTube. And thank you so much for supporting our efforts here on this channel. So now let's get into it. All right, so the West Coast swing for American Flat Track is complete, and probably the biggest headline coming out of this is not something that happened on the track. An announcement from Shayna Texter-Bauman and Briar Bauman on Saturday morning, letting everybody know that Shayna is pregnant and the couple is expecting a child in the fall. So Flat Track's royal family, Flat Track's it couple, they're going to be adding a prince or a princess into their family come this fall, and just very excited for them to welcome a child, and wishing them all the best as they embark on this next journey of their relationship and of their life off the track. We love seeing our flat track family succeed on the track and making memories there. But when you're also having these incredible moments off track and just winning in life, that's almost even more special. So we're super excited for Briar and Shayna to welcome their first child in the fall, and wishing them all the best on this journey in their life off track. There's a lot of exciting things for them that happened during the California swing, but I feel like all of that pales in comparison to this excitement, which they get to share with the world now. And just wishing you guys all the best. You're going to make incredible parents, and that kid is going to be so loved. The entire atmosphere around the Texter-Bauman pits, for as long as I can remember, has always just been super welcoming, super loving, and I'm incredibly thankful to every member of that pit area and that family for how they treated us, and just can't express enough how excited we are for you all to embark on this next chapter of your life. So yeah, huge news happening off the track, in addition to a lot of the racing that took place over that weekend. We're going to lead off with the excitement that happened at Lodi the night before, and talk just a little bit about some of what went down there on Lodi. And a huge thanks to Fans Choice for covering that event. So one thing that was super cool about Lodi is that they incorporated the time trials aspect. And yeah, I know it took a little while, and they did have that delay after qualifying, which was a little bit of a bummer. But it was, for me, really awesome to see that implemented. And I would kind of like to see it trickle over into American Flat Track in the future. As a sprint car fan and somebody who works on World of Outlaw shows, we do the hot laps, and then we go into qualifying for our series. I think it'd be cool, especially where rider counts are right now. You wouldn't. Don't think we'll lose that much time. Keep the 2 practice sessions, but then maybe in the singles class, send 3 riders out at a time. We got the transponders, and let them qualify like that instead of in these big groups. Maybe get them spaced out, better chance to lay down, a super solid lap. And then with the twins class, I would let them go out one at a time and, get the track to themselves, give the spectators a chance to get their eyes solely focused on the premier riders in our series, and give them a chance to lay down, a clean lap without any sort of additional variables of traffic in the way, and they just have a clean track for themselves. So I don't know. I thought it was super fun to follow there at Lodi, and getting to hear, who got to be the king of the hill, or whatever that phrase was. But they get to sit under the tent with the crown and the scepter to top qualifying. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's something we could see come back. I know they utilized it in the 90s, maybe even in the 80s. Don't quite remember that far back, but I know in the early 90s, time trials was definitely a thing during Grand National races. And then we moved over to scratch sheets and then came back into, the big like group qualifying thing that we have right now. But I don't know, just a thought, just something I would like to see. And man, that Lodi Pro class was stacked. 30 plus riders, super cutthroat. Like just seeing sort of the top, singles and twins riders all be in the same class, dicing it out for victory out there. It sort of had we get that at like some of these Corey Texter promotions events where you see the top riders in the same class, and some of the top stars in the sport don't make the main event. It's very very, very intense, and you got to get after it. And throughout that night, we got to see some of the Lodi locals shine, and we also got to see some of the American Flat Track pros that traveled in put in a solid ride as well. Trent Lowe stepping back on the 450 for the night. He'd be quick time. He'd also win his heat race and be joined by Chad Coast, Cage Tadman, Terrence Santero, Kyle Anselmi, and Braden Fanders as heat race winners. Those riders would end up in a dash for cash that would see Cage Tadman get out front early, but Chad Coast was just looking so strong earlier in the day, and it looked like he was running it in a lot deeper than anybody else into the corners. And Chad was able to get by Cage on the last lap of that dash for cash and take home the victory. And still seeing Cage, coming off of his Ventura victory in his debut, to be right there in the mix at Lodi, a place that he's found some success this year and has turned a lot of laps throughout his career. And Chad Coast, same deal. I mean, Chad's turned a lot of laps out there. Taryn being the defending winner of this event, up there in the mix as well. And we were seeing a lot of top riders who didn't make the show. I mean, a tough night for Evan Renshaw. Jared Lowe wasn't able to make the feature. Davis Fisher went down in his semi. He didn't make the show. Tyler Raggio, a couple of the really strong Lodi locals that we expected to be kind of up in the mix, they missed the cut for the main event. It was a very deep field in Lodi on Thursday night, and we got to see some really exciting racing. Off the start, Terrence Santero, defending event winner, on the T-shirt. I guess it was a curse because he went down and they had to restart the race. And on the restart, you see Chad Coast get out front over Braden Fanders, and then the Cage Tadman's able to get into second really briefly, and or able to get into second, and then following that, he takes the lead from Coast for a moment, but then Chad would answer back and lead for a few laps. But as Chad and Cage would start to check out from the field, Braden Fanders, Trent Lowe would start battling for third, and Trent would get around Braden about halfway through the main event and start running down Chad and Cage. And Cage had a little bit better bike in the main event. He was stalking Chad throughout that feature and would end up making the pass. And when he got by Chad, he was able to pull a pretty solid lead. Chad was left to battle with Trent Lowe there for second. And Cage Tadman just keeping the momentum rolling from Ventura, wins everything, wins the night at Kern the night before Ventura, sweeps his AFT opener, keeping the ball rolling, gets the victory at Lodi. Again, more eyeballs on this kid being on the live broadcast and picking up a big victory in Lodi in this, just star-studded event. Trent Lowe would end up getting by Chad Coast and come home second, with Chad being third, and that rounds out the podium there. Braden Fanders, Trevor Bruner would bring in the top five there. Bruner actually had to come through a semi himself on this night, and just super exciting racing out there in the pro class. Now, additionally, Lodi also had a twins class on the night, and several Super Twins riders were able to get a few laps in. We got to see the likes of Davis Fisher, Dan Bromley, James Ott, Justin Jones, Maxwell, just to name a few. Bromley, unfortunately, unable to start the main event. And when this race started, it would be Justin Jones getting the early lead. He would hold off James Ott early on, winning a shutoff contest going into turn 3 earlier in the race. But a red flag brought out by Logan Eisenhard, who went down in turn 2 and was kind of stuck under the bike, would reset the field. And from there, James Ott would get the better of the restart. He would take the lead over Jones, and Davis Fisher would end up in third place. Fisher would be right there behind Jones and in this race, but unfortunately, just a bad night, a pretty rough West Coast trip for Fisher to this point, at least. Fisher gets into the back of Jones, goes down in turn 2, and that pretty much ended Jones's quest for a victory as well. That little bit of contact allowed James Ott to squirt away and pick up the victory on the night for the G&G team, and James would be able to carry that momentum over into Chico, as we'll talk about a little bit later in this video. But cool to see a few Twins riders come out and get a little bit of extra laps. And then in the amateur classes, this particular night had 6 classes of racing, those 2 pro classes that we mentioned, and 4 supporting amateur classes. We got to see Jack Brooks repping for First Impressions Husqvarna, and in the amateur class, along with Lodi locals Colton Schaefer and Ethan Salmon. Ethan Salmon has put in a really good run back at Winter Throwdown, taking home a victory in the open amateur class aboard his 250, and is one of the riders who is pretty strong out in California. And in this amateur race, they would see Brooks out front early, but Colton Schaefer would get by him and pull a pretty big lead, and then that would lead Salmon and Brooks to battle for second place, with Ethan Salmon getting around Jack later in the race and able to bring it home second. But by the time Salmon was able to clear Brooks, Colton Schaefer was already pretty gone, and Schaefer able to bring home a comfortable win in that class. Additionally, we got to see another rider who impressed at Winter Throwdown in the Corey Texter Series, and Jackson Joyner get a really good start in the 85cc main event, and he would need that because earlier in the day, Brody Davis was a rocket ship in the 85cc class, and Brody didn't get the best of starts. He had to work his way through the pack, but he was able to catch Joyner with just a couple laps to go in that race. Those two had a good little battle, but it would see Brody Davis get by Joyner, come to the white flag, and Brody Davis able to hold on and pick up a victory, and he was very, very impressive on this night. It's the first time I've gotten to see much of Brody race. We knew how good Jackson could be, but getting to see Brody Davis for the first time was really impressive, and looking forward to following his career progression throughout the rest of his time here in the flat track scene. Hope to see him contest some rounds, outside of California, and get to follow along with his career. They had, a couple of vintage and vet classes on the night as well. And man, these vet riders make me nervous sometimes. You guys are out there just going at it tooth and nail, and couple of incidents early on in the heat races, several jump starts, a little antsy, but the main event would be fun. Sean Raggio didn't get the best of starts. He ended up having to come from 4th to win this race. He would get past Jimmy Sanchez with just a couple of laps to go in that main event and take home the victory in the vet class on the night. And in the vintage class, Brian Berna would get the better of Pedro Brown. They had a fun little battle early on in that race, but it would be Berna taking home the victory. And so that'll kind of put a bow on things for Lodi. There was another event. Actually, there were 2 events, one the night before and one the day after Chico. Those events held at Cycleland Speedway. And there's a YouTube channel called It's Time to Ride with Todd Souza, and we'll link that here. We'll screenshot for you guys as well of that main page. And he's going to be posting some content from that event. So make sure you follow that page as well. And I look forward to seeing some content from him from those events at Cycleland. But let's go ahead and check out how things went down at round 5 of the Progressive American Flat Track season at Silver Dollar Speedway up in Chico, California. So the theme of the day, and sort of the word of the day, if you will, was inconsistent. And that is what a lot of people would use to describe the track at Chico. Jared Vanderkoy, after the first practice session, even mentioned that it wasn't good. And that was a guy who was the fastest in that session. You could see just a lot of bumps, and Kolby and Scotty would highlight that at several points throughout the program. Man, everybody seemed to be, in a PBR rodeo contest coming off of turn 4, especially. 1 and 2 started to get a more defined line around the top, especially in the later parts of qualifying. And we'll start today, not today, we'll start this portion with the singles program. And singles Q2 was a lot of fun, especially that first group. You had several riders just jumping each other for that top spot in qualifying, and it would be the overall quick time as they were faster than Q1. Ultimately, Terran Santero was able to top qualifying for the singles class, and for Terran, he would be the only person that would get the honors of besting another Californian on the night. And that other Californian, you might have heard of him. We might have hyped him up a little bit. Man, Cage Tadman is just, we can't put enough praise on this young man and how impressive these past few weeks have been for him. Cage had to start on the second row of his heat race, was able to get to the front after a great start and a good battle with Trevor Bruner. Cage gets the better of Bruner in that heat race, wins the heat race, goes on to win the Dash for Cash, leading every single lap. And then the main event comes around and he'd do the same. Gets the whole shot, Spins off Bruner early on going into turns 3, and that was as close as anybody would get to Cage, because from there, he would leave every lap and just check out and leave everybody else to fight for second. And that Cage, after Chico now, he led every lap. Cage has now led more laps in the main event than any other rider in the singles class through the first 5 races of the year. This is a kid who didn't even see the first 3 rounds of the season. And if you had told me coming into this year that 80% of the victories through the first 5 rounds would come from a rookie and a road racer, I would have been quite confused. But man, these 2 guys on their KTMs have been so impressive. Obviously, we know what Cody's capable of. When he showed up at Daytona, just dominant. But I don't think anybody expected Cage Chapman to make this kind of impact in his debut. And these first couple of rounds, he's just been unstoppable. Aside from a 7th place finish on his stock bike at Cycleland, this last month, it's been Cage Chapman P1 in pretty much everything he's done. And in Ventura, he was able to rip that high line and just hammer the gas and put on a show up there. And then we come to Chico, and he's able to make the bottom work, showing some versatility, able to adapt to different conditions and switch up the strategy and apply it to make this just incredible, this incredible journey continue for him. We're super impressed with everything that Cage has been able to do throughout these couple of rounds, and hopefully we'll get to see him continue on throughout the summer. It's really what's another thing that's very impressive, not just his riding style, but Cage's commitment to his schooling. He's still a full-time student in public school. He's only a junior in high school. And so still very committed to that. The semester's winding down, and hopefully we get to see him contest some of these rounds over the summer. But Cage has said in several interviews, he's just enjoying being a kid, trying to get through school. And when he's able to show up at the racetrack, that's awesome. But there's such it's so enjoyable to chat with him when we can. He's just such a humble kid, and very grateful for everything that he's been able to experience in flat track racing. And they were talking after the main event about is he going to be fielding calls from teams? Where's Cage going to go? Where's his best fit? And it got me thinking, first off, this kid's stock is going to be at an all-time high right now, so sponsors should be lining up to get on board with this and join the Rager, because this kid is something special for this class, and has been really the feel-good story of the season. Going back to the team stuff, you look at the bigger teams in flat track. You've got the KTM doesn't really have a team per se. They were kind of sort of with Rick Ware last year, but now Rick Ware Racing has chased that off as their rider, and Chase is riding a Honda for that team. You look at Estenson and the Yamahas, and I don't really see, I don't know what the inner workings of your plans are for them in the future, but they seem pretty dedicated to Dallas Daniels and the Drain family. For long term, they've ridden with Dallas this whole time, and you've got Sam as one of their amateur riders, Sam Drain, and Tom Drain leading the singles points as they chase that championship. They seem pretty dedicated to that program. Over on the Turner side, they've got Walker Porter, who's ready to make his debut at the next round. First Impressions Racing has Jack Brooks in the pipeline, and you have Renshaw on that team, as well as Chad Coase. It almost feels like Cage is in a good spot where he is right now as far as teams go, being under that Jerry Stinchfield tent, where Jerry's got Brandon Robinson on the Twin, the Harley, and he's also helping out Terrence Santero on a Honda. Jerry doesn't seem to really need a specific brand consistency with his effort, whereas you see like First Impressions is Husqvarna, and Estenson is Yamaha, and Turner is Honda. Jerry seems to support the rider, and whatever they're able to bring, they're able to bring. So maybe that's where Cage's best fit is, and maybe we can just get more funding for their programs so that way they can continue to run other rounds. But as far as his mod bike goes, he's only got the one, and so they want to protect it. He mentioned on his interview on Off the Groove with Scotty Doodler that the idea of going to Lima would be a lot of wear and tear on that machine. And man, I wouldn't want to mess that bad boy up either. But hopefully they can get some funding to contest Lucas Oil and maybe make the trip over to Lima and DuQuoin. It's a haul for a lot of these riders to make those efforts. And whether that's East Coast guys going West Coast or West Coast guys going East Coast, I mean, there's a lot of grind in this sport, and it's definitely not easy to make those trips. But man, we're just super optimistic for this kid's future in flat track racing, and wish him all the best in all of his ventures. But man, Cage, go back to school being easily the coolest kid in the class. I don't know that anybody else there is a professional flat track winner, let alone unbeaten in American flat tracks. So yeah, ride that high a little bit. Behind Cage was a battle for second. Now we mentioned Trevor Bruner settled into second. Bruner was able to survive this and come home with his first podium of the season, his best effort. Trevor able to close the gap a little bit in points, but it wasn't easy. We had Bruner, Hunter Bauer, Aiden Roos-Evans was in that fight, Chase Sadoff, Terrence Santero, Tom Drain, all in this battle. Chad Coase in the mix at one point as well. Hunter Bauer was able to sort of find a higher line. See, most of the singles main event, and then really most of the racing throughout the day, it seemed to be relatively bottom dominant, started to widen out a little bit as the night progressed. Bruner and Drain walked to that bottom, but you would see Hunter Bauer, Chase Sadoff, Terrence Santero. They would try to make that high line work. Chase, who'd been struggling all day, qualified 18th overall, was really having to come from behind and try to make the most out of the night. Was slide job Sadoff on the night. He and Bauer were going at it earlier in the race, and then Bauer was able to get clear of him and find that high line, and was really side by side with Bruner for several laps before it seemed to go away just a little bit on him. Bruner's able to prevail from this battle. Comes home second. Tom Drain's able to come home third. Another podium on the year. Drain's podiumed in 4 of the 5 races this year. His worst finish being a 4th, but still chasing that first victory on the season. Bauer would end up coming home 4th with Sadoff having to settle for a 5th place finish. And that does allow Drain to sort of squeak out a couple more points. Looking at the points right now, Tom Drain still chasing his first win on the year, but being very, very consistent. He has a 5-point lead over Sadoff now. Bruner able to make a little bit of ground on Tom there. Gets within 14 points of the points leader. And then Terrence Santero and Aiden Roos-Evans bring up the top 5. A name you don't see in that top 5 is Evan Renshaw. And unfortunately, Evan is going to have to sort of highlight this next segment of singles class carnage. And there was a lot of riders that went down in kind of a big way in the singles class on that night. And Evan's crash especially scary. Getting high coming off of turn 4 down the front straightaway, high sides on the front straightaway, right there at the finish line up against the wall. Braden Fanders has to throw the bike down behind him. It's high speed area in traffic. People are scattering. Big P almost got taken out by riders trying to avoid Fanders' bike, and a very scary moment for Evan. Thankful to see that he was able to get to his feet, but his night would be done. And just a really brutal West Coast swing for Evan Renshaw, who, looked pretty strong early in the night in Ventura and then ended up having to settle for a 9th place finish. Not the best night at Lodi, missing the main event. And then this crash is just, it's been a rough year for Evan. It's been a rough year for first impressions as a whole, aside from that podium that Evan was able to get in Sonoy. So we just, we wish all the best for Evan in his recovery, and hopefully this little break, that team will be able to reset and come back out at Lucas Oil and come out swinging again. We know what Chad and Evan are capable of on these bikes, and their speed and their skill set. We know what they're able to do on these machines, and just had a lot of bad luck and unfortunate circumstances really surrounding them throughout this season, with Chad having to miss a round in addition to being hurt there in Daytona, and then Evan with this crash. Just a tough year so far for those Husqvarna bikes, but Fanders was able to rebound. He ended up getting back into a transfer spot out of his heat race for the first couple laps in the main event. Was able to get up there in the mix, was actually up in the top 5 for the first couple laps, but just wasn't able to stay with that front pack throughout the main event. But it was good to see Braden still make the trip to California after that violent crash in Sonoy. Additionally, in the singles class, in Heat 2, Justin Anselmi, who had such a strong start to his night, he and Trevor Bruner kind of made contact going into 1 and 2, both going for the same piece of real estate on the inside of the track. Bruner trying to get down from the top of the racetrack, and Selmy trying to hold that bottom as well. And Selmy goes down. Miles Donaldson has nowhere to go. And Caleb Martin would also have a really rough high side going over the back of Skylar Sintel's tire on the last turn of the last lap in the LCQ for the singles class. Rough night for Caleb. And then Bronson Pierce had a freak accident. It wasn't a crash. He just got his foot stuck in the back tire of another rider going into turn 3 on the opening lap of that singles LCQ, and posted a photo on his Instagram story sharing that he likely suffered a broken fibula and just incredibly swollen left foot. Like I said, he didn't crash, but just you could see he had his foot caught and then slowed up. And there's a couple of laps of the LCQ. So Bronson's going to be out of action for a little bit, but wishing all of them a speedy recovery, and hopefully we can see them back at the track sooner than later. But yeah, had a couple of Anselmi and Fanders also laid it down in practice in turn 4. Yeah, just a lot of scary moments for the singles class on this track. It's very unfortunate to see that sort of mixed in amongst the storylines. As much positivity that was coming out of there, there is sort of the other side of the sport and the reality of the dangers that these riders do face. Okay, on to the twins class now. In quick time on the night, it would go to Briar Bauman, and then he would end up in the same heat race with his main title rivals, or most of them. Dallas Daniels was in the heat race with him. Brandon Robinson's in that heat race. Jared Vanderkoy in that heat race. Dallas would get the better of them in the heat race, and bottom looking like the place to go at this point of the night. Again, Dallas Daniels mentioning inconsistent conditions in his interview, and but he would get the better of Briar here in this heat race, and again, wanting to keep pace with Briar in these points. Briar on a roll at this time. Heat 2, wide open. Max Whale starting on the pole, but it'd be Logan McGrain who gets the whole shot, and Logan's had a really impressive West Coast swing, hopping on board that Shapers Motorsports KTM. And Logan led the first couple of laps of this race, and then had a pretty dicey battle with Davis Fisher and James Ott. Fisher able to, at one point, cut under James Ott in turn 4, and then swing around the outside and try to get around Logan McGrain. Those two would end up running wide a little bit, open the door for James Ott to take the lead, and then Fisher would end up getting by McGrain as well, and almost get James Ott at the finish line, but Ott would pick up the victory in the heat race, and James Ott carrying that momentum from a victory at Lodi in their twins class and looking really, really good. James had an incredibly impressive night. Now, Ott would also lead laps in the Dash for Cash after the heat race victory, and in this Dash for Cash, it was intense. You got to see 3 of the 4 riders in the Dash led a lap. The only rider who wasn't able to lead a lap here would find success later in the night. But James Ott leads the opening lap. Davis Fisher leads the second lap. Ott gets back to the lead. Fisher nearly crashes. Then on the final lap, James Ott gets in a little high going into 3 and 4, and Dallas Daniels able to squeak underneath, and Daniels able to pick up the victory in the Mission Challenge, and Fisher comes home second. Ott fell back to third at this time, and Dallas had a really funny quote on the podium when Kristen asked what he learned, and Dallas said, well, he learned that the boys are willing to sweep a leg for $5,000. And gave me a little bit of a chuckle. He looked stressed during that interview, and it was a pretty high octane and intense battle in that dash. Now, before the Super Twins man could get underway, Mother Nature decided to sprinkle a little moisture on the racetrack, and that delayed the start of the main event. But once it got going, we had 2 pretty distinct lines. 1 and 2 even had more than that. You could run pretty much anywhere. It seemed like a 1 and 2, but 3 and 4 seemed to have a distinct bottom and a top, and James Ott was able to use that to his advantage. Dallas Daniels got the early lead, but Ott able to roll the outside, and James able to take over the lead and led a good portion of this main event. Now, Briar Bauman, not the best start. He was back in 4th place at one point, but was working his way forward. We mentioned those 2 distinct lines. There were several points of this main event where Dallas Daniels kind of found himself in that no man's land in 3 and 4, sort of in the middle, and was starting to go backwards. He ended up falling back to 3rd behind Briar, with Davis Fisher pressuring him. Briar would run down James Ott, make the inside line work, gets by Ott. As soon as Briar was able to clear Ott, Ott tried to move to the bottom and follow him. And then when he went back up top, it just seemed like the high line in 3 and 4 had gone away. He tried to make it work, but just started to fall back. James ended up having to settle for 5th on the night. But still, for this rookie, he's been fighting for the lead at a couple of rounds, now leading laps. Very impressive performance from James, and gets his best finish of the year on that G&G Yamaha in the state of California. We mentioned he fell back to 5th. Davis Fisher and Dallas Daniels would get into a battle for 2nd place. Vanderkoy would end up clearing Ott later in the race as well. But that battle for 2nd was the main focus on the broadcast between Fisher and Daniels, with Davis Fisher getting the better of Dallas, and Davis needing this after just a rough swing. He had a crash in Ventura. He had several moments in Lodi where he went down, and now to be able to put that KTM on the podium again, coming home 2nd place, his best result of the season. But Briar Bauman, more home cooking for the Californian. This is 3 in a row for the number 3, and with one more win in Lucas Oil, he would tie his longest win streak of the Super Twins career for him when he won 4 straight back in 2020. But man, this is just a a happy, fun, goofy Briar that we're getting to see. A lot of personality out of him in these interviews, and he just seems like he's in such a better place after a tumultuous couple of years on and off the track. It's great to see just him enjoying life and motorcycle racing right now. His competitors probably not as thrilled, but like we said at the top, we're thrilled for all of our riders when they accomplish things on and off the track. And he wasn't ready. He wasn't going to risk it all in that Dash for Cash when they were fighting so hard up front in an event that doesn't pay championship points. But when it comes down to the main event, he put together another incredible ride and a strong margin of victory for the number 3, which gives him 29 wins. He's only 2 behind Will Davis for 10th all time, and he's only 10 behind another Salinas legend and Ricky Graham for 5th all time. So in the next couple of years, it would not surprise me if Briar Bauman's able to break through into the top 5 in the all-time wins category for the premier class in flat track racing. They have found something special with this Harley, and look out, because he's on a roll right now and probably wishes this break wouldn't happen. They've got such momentum rolling right now. They probably want to just keep it going, but we'll have a little bit of a lull, so the rest of the competition can attempt to play catch up to what their program has been so far. Again, we mentioned Davis Fisher comes in 2nd, Daniels 3rd, Vanderkooi and Ott rounding out the top 5 on the night, and Briar Bauman now with a 10-point lead over Dallas in the points. Those two have really separated themselves and are the title favorites at this point. Behind them, Davis Fisher back in 3rd, Brandon Robinson, Jared Vanderkooi. That's sort of like that second tier, that battle for 3rd in the championship. And then behind them, James Ott moves into a tie for 6th. And this group of James Ott, Max Whale, Trent Lowe, Dan Bromley, only separated by a few points. That's going to be fun to see them, flip-flop back and forth throughout the rest of the year. 4 different brands all vying for that different spot. And that's going to be something to keep an eye on and see which one of them can potentially maybe break through for a podium on the year. Again, we've seen really strong performances from Trent earlier on. He had a rough Chico, but they'll be looking to bounce back. He's, I feel like, overachieved on that Honda. They've made a lot of strides on that this year. Bromley making that Suzuki look good, getting that top 5 back in Ventura. Max Whale with great speed early in the day in Chico and running strong in Ventura as well. James Ott, we've talked about it. He was up front in that fight in Sonoy back at round 3, leading laps here in Chico. I feel like one of these riders could definitely break through for a podium at some point this year. Additionally, they had the running of the bulls out there at Chico, and while the class wasn't all bull tacos, it was a bull taco that would take home the victory. For the 2nd year in a row, you get to see Jonathan Schaefer take home the win in that class. He was checked out. He led the whole race. The main focus was a battle between Curtis Peebles, Ken Netto, and Brandon Weller, and they had quite a battle going on for 2nd place. That would see Peebles prevail and come home 2nd in that running of the bulls race. A cool little support class, those 2-stroke flat tracker machines, just screaming around the quarter mile there in Silver Dollar Speedway. So the support, if you will, the support class on the night. Also, just something I thought was, kind of funny. It makes me giggle every time he says it. But when Scotty Dubler's talking about they turn the card sideways, all I can hear when he says turn it sideways is, and if that's not what you heard before, you're probably going to hear it now. That might get me in trouble, but it's just something that makes me giggle every time that he mentions it, and they show the 10-second card go sideways before a race. It was great to see such strong crowds, especially the last few rounds. Sonoy had a great showing back in March. Ventura had a solid crowd. Chico, a pretty solid crowd. Hopefully we can keep the fan base growing, and it looks great for these facilities and the series to be able to put so many people in the stands and build that relationship. And, fingers crossed we can keep venues like this on the schedule and have it as a routine and a constant moving forward. I would love to revisit some of these tracks. Maybe we can get them in a little bit better shape in the future. But we do need to build those relationships and to continue to have these tracks as a reliable, places to visit so that we can continue to build this schedule. I would hope to see at some point in the future American Flat Track get back to a 20 race schedule. Now, across the pond, the DTRA series kicked off at Northside Speedway in Workington, and that was in the UK. And we'd see Tim and Tom Need go 1-2 in the opening round of that series. But then the second round, we got to see Jack Bell take home the victory over Gary Burtwhistle. And Jack is one of the riders that we got to chat with and get to see at Winter Throwdown this past year, coming over with the Dead Good race team and getting to see some of the UK guys mix it up with top stars in American Flat Track. And Jack found a success in the twins class over there as well. So who knows? Maybe one day we can get Jack Bell contesting in the American Flat Track Series and add another member to the twins class and mix it up with those top riders as well. I'd be curious to see how he would fit in. I believe he's running an FTO7 over there in the UK, but yeah, good to see some racing coming out of the UK. It's really fun to watch flat track on these like speedway tracks that we get to see in the FIM series as well. So going to try to follow along with the DTRA series this year. And then we mentioned speedway racing, man. Speedway Grand Prix started over the weekend, and I'm hyped for that as well. First round up in Germany. They switched up their format a little bit for Speedway GP with the qualifying and now the sprint race. And I'm still not crazy about sprint races. They have it in MotoGP, and not really my favorite thing. And I don't necessarily love it in Speedway GP. Maybe I'm too much of a purist. I just have to get over it. But man, Speedway GP is super exciting to watch. Bartosz Marszalek is a just beast on a motorcycle. Dude, watching that guy rip around those tracks is something special. Some of the stuff that he's able to do on those bikes, it just doesn't make sense. He is so fast. And if you can't tell by my reactions, Marszalek did pick up the win, the defending champion in that series, picked up the win in Germany over the weekend. But a rider who was really impressive to me is his first season on the GP circuit, Brady Kurtz from Australia. Put together a really good ride, strong qualifying effort, ended up in the sprint race, made it to the GP final, coming home fourth. But I'm curious to see what he's able to do there in the Speedway Grand Prix series. Dan Bewley, another promising rider out of the UK, has been fun to follow over the past few years. Their action is usually on Racer TV, formerly Mav TV. If you have that as part of your streaming packages, or if you guys have those jailbroken Fire Sticks and are trying to watch over there, I'd highly recommend checking out some Speedway GP. I would love to see some of those riders try flat track racing here in the States, or maybe a flat tracker. I wonder who would be the best speedway rider amongst our flat track gang if they were to contest some of those races over there. But man, it's just a really, really impressive, entertaining form of racing, and those crowds are rabid, especially in places like Poland and the UK and in Croatia. Man, it's a big deal over there. That's going to do it. Man, we talked for a long time today. Lots to unpack from the wrapping up of the West Coast rounds. Again, keep an eye out on It's Time to Ride with Todd Souza for some of the content from Cycle Land. And additionally, I'm not sure if you guys are following Daughters of the Road. That's Kristen Lassen, who does a lot of work with American Flat Track, is an amazing photographer, and they have a podcast as well. They've put out some really cool videos on YouTube about some of the rides that they've been able to do. So support that channel. They do a great job of the production value on their podcast episodes, on their YouTube stuff, showcasing their rides and their interviews that they've done. And Kristen, just such a kind soul, and I'm super thankful to have gotten to chat with her at a couple of rounds in the past. So yeah, make sure you're supporting those channels that are doing stuff to support motorcycling, and especially the sport of flat track, YouTube channels, podcasts. Check out old episodes if there's interviews you missed with riders you like. We need to keep this momentum going, and it feels like we're in a pretty good spot right now with this sport, with some of these storylines coming out of California. I so wish we didn't have this big lull, but there is a mild cure for that. There's more DTRA races coming up here soon. There's also the Mission Foods Corey Texter Racing Flat Track Series, which will take place in Salem, Ohio, the Buckeye Nationals. You can catch all that action on Fans Choice, and probably going to do a follow-up with that. Trying to work out a couple of interviews for the channel as well during this lull. But man, May is a crazy month for me as far as the World Outlaw schedule goes. One of the busiest months of the year for that series, so I'm going to be in studio quite a bit. But thank you guys again for checking this out. Thank you for supporting this channel. Thank you for the feedback. And thank you for all the riders for going out there and contesting the sport. Thank you to all the sponsors, teams, fans, everybody that's involved in this sport. Thank you for making it what it is. Just this beautiful family that we have. And let's keep the ball rolling. Really excited for what the rest of the 2025 season has to offer us. So, yeah, that'll do it for us today, man. Y'all take care and have a wonderful, wonderful week. Love yous.